Hello and welcome to a special Indianomics on the power sector and what it can expect from the budget. Actually, our sister channel CNBC Awaz last week broke a story that the government may come with a new power policy along with the budget or as part of the budget. The key issues that need addressing in the power sector, of course, are, as always, health of discoms, and then new ones like tweaking the rooftop solar scheme if needed, import duties on solar modules and solar cells, which are going to become very important because of President Trump, battery storage, that's with battery prices crashing, nuclear power, the new baby that the government will have to take interest, and green hydrogen, whether the old juices still remain. Today we have with us an elite panel to discuss what should a power policy contain, if indeed there is a new policy. Joining me are Mr. Anil Swarup, former Secretary, Government of India, handled, of course, coal, the most high profile. Mohit Bhargava, the Senior Advisor, IECC, University of California, but more importantly, a former CEO at NTPC Green Energy. Nikhil Nigania, the Director and Senior Analyst at Bernstein. And Sabyasachi Majumdar, the Senior Director, CareEdge Ratings. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Well, you know, we are expecting that there may be a policy. These are, of course, usual pre-budget news breaks. So I don't want to give the impression there is one, but there could be one. Let me start with Mr. Mohit Bhargava. Mr. Bhargava, inevitably, distribution has to be attended to. For all the efforts of the last 30 years, the losses continue. ATC losses are actually mounting. So what would you expect if there is a policy on distribution?
Thank you, Ms. Latha, and thanks for having me. And good morning to everyone else on the panel. Yeah, policy is expected, as you said, but honestly, we really don't know because the government operates in its own ways. If you permit, I'll just take a few seconds on IECC. IECC is actually India Energy and Climate Center at University of California, Berkeley, is actually helping the top government officials and policymakers to take decisions for economic growth and make it more sustainable. And in this, we have been supporting various departments, including earlier the coal ministry also, and we continue to do so.
Mr. Swarup, in your career, not just in coal secretary, but perhaps also in Uttar Pradesh, you would have seen this unending problem of distribution. They're not going away. If there is a policy, what will you expect?
I hope there is no policy. We don't need policies now. We need action plan.
Okay.
I remember meeting Mr. Modi in 2014 when the crisis was on both in coal and power sector. Unfortunately, the crisis in power sector was not as recognized as the coal sector. But ultimately, they came up with Uday, which was a brilliant policy, very good policy. So we must understand what is required in this country. It is not set of policies. And I hope they don't waste time on policies because you will have a lot of time discussing those policies here with ultimately 10 years down the line, nothing would have happened or not much would have happened. So what we need is a real action plan. And in an action plan, we must understand if a thing is not happening, why is it not happening? We don't really address those issues. What we discuss is policies, policies, and policies. Even today, you will discuss policies, not going into the details of it. Let me give you an example. This power sector has been by and large sorted out in Gujarat. Now, my question in 2015 and even now is, why can't the Rajasthan government sit with Gujarat government and work out a clear-cut action plan? Because the terrain is similar on both the states. So we will end up discussing policies here.
Yeah,
we will not discuss the action
plan.
Mr.
Swarup,
my suggestion to you would be...
that point is absolutely valid. That we have to take
why are we wasting
successful
time here
examples.
discussing policies?
But
no, let me clarify. Since you called me here, let me clarify. The objective of any discussion should be to move ahead. And my contention is very clear. We are trying to correct things sitting here in Delhi. We are sitting here and discussing policies in Delhi. The problem lies in the states. And if you compare why coal happened between 14 and 16 and power did not, Uday, the sun did not rise, because everything was being done here in Delhi. What really needs to be done is go down to the states, sit with the states, understand the problem, work out a clear-cut action plan, and I hope there is no wastage of time in coming up with another policy.
Okay, fair enough. That having no policy is also a policy, and we have to see whether any action plans will come through. That need not come as part of the budget at all. But Mr. Bhargava, I was asking you whether you expect any announcements on, privatization, for instance, of discom? Very, uniquely and importantly, the Uttar Pradesh government has announced a privatization, I think, of one of its discoms. That's big news, and we have some breaking news today that Tata Power could be in the fray. Your thoughts, do you think that something can come as part of the budget or along with the budget on discoms?
No, Ms. Latha, I think you need to understand that distribution is a state subject. So any news regarding, if any news regarding privatization of discom has to be at the state level. But one more thing is important, that I think this has been established largely clearly, that privatization or not, that is not the point. The point is that there has to be accountability and responsibility at the discom level, and which, if I may add, Anil sir mentioned about Gujarat, but we have seen now that happening at many other states. So many states have actually improved their losses significantly.
Yes.
They've come down dramatically. A couple of them are actually making profits also, and I'm not talking about the private discoms. It's the government discoms which are doing very well. So
Yeah,
it
I
can
take
be
your
done.
point, sir. But the RDSS was a centrally mooted, plan, and that was intended at the distribution scheme. So, is it possible that, as part of the policy, if there is one, something can be done for encouraging privatization or discouraging losses?
No, discouraging losses, the central government has always done, and you rightly mentioned RDSS, and there were a couple of schemes earlier as well. But if privatization has to happen, and as you mentioned, UP, I also read that report that they're looking at Kanpur to take it forward. So that's ultimately the decision of the government. I would say it's also political will, and if they feel comfortable taking it forward, why not? But I must say, it doesn't mean that privatization is the panacea.
Yeah.
It can be, we have examples where it hasn't worked very well. And like I said, state governments have worked very well as well.
Okay. Well, I think in more cases, privatization appears to have worked, but I take your point in UP. I believe there are some union issues as well. Nikhil, to come to you, you don't have to stick to distribution, but broadly, if there is a policy and if it includes distribution, what will you expect or what will you want?
Sure, Latha. So from a policy standpoint, see, distribution is the Achilles heel of the sector. Absolutely no doubt about that. I think everyone will agree to that. In terms of the solution, it can be multifold. One, obviously, the RDSS scheme with the central government has run, that continues as part of the next year's budget as well, those expenditures to improve health of discom. That seems business as usual. The second thing, my view is AT&C loss reduction. Private discoms we have seen in cities, and now Odisha is one good example where a private entity, Tata Power, is transforming the distribution business. It might not always happen, I agree, in the right direction, but at least till now, we have more cases in favor of private entities transforming discoms for the better. And the UP instance, the two discoms actually are being considered for privatization. Should be a positive from a discom health perspective as well, is what we feel. From a policy standpoint, if one asks, see, if you look at countries abroad, in many countries, you have a multiple power retailer model. In India, for example, only Mumbai is the only place when we have multiple distributors selling power. So if you could have sort of a competitive space in distribution as well, which is monopolistic in most parts of the country except Mumbai, through multiple licensees or, segregating the line from the retail bit, that could help improve health of discom and the
maybe that could be placed as a goal. Okay, let's move away from distribution. Sabyasachi, is there anything else that you can expect, say, either in terms of nuclear or, green energy, renewable? Is there anything where a policy intervention is even needed?
So to answer that question, basically what we can expect from the budget is maybe something in the line of additional funding, either for the grants, continuing with the grants component for RDSS, or maybe some viability gap funding for various schemes like hydrogen or green hydrogen or nuclear, etc. But by and large, as Mr. Swarup points out, most of the action will have to happen at the state government level, beginning from the discom side, because once the discoms are financially viable, they are able to afford all kind of solutions. For instance, the solutions that we have, like batteries or anything, all these are expensive solutions. So And it boils down to the fact that many of the discoms don't have the financial muscle to, use all these solutions for meeting their power requirements on a 24/7 basis. So really, it really boils down finally to the discom
You
sector.
know what? I'll tell you, the recent policy interventions have gone against discoms. For instance, rooftop solar, that has taken away their best customers. They're able to fend for themselves. Or solar cells, you want to protect the country from cheap Chinese goods. But who pays more expensive solar modules? The discoms. So, what you want to help elsewhere, it seems to be hurting the discoms. But let me digress for just a minute. The power sector is on fire at this point in time. As I speak to you all, I think the very presence of all of you has given some wings to power stocks. So I just need to attend to that for a minute. Nikhil, what part of the power sector, is worth buying at this juncture? I'm only asking because NTPC up 3.3%, BHEL up 3.2%, Power Grid 3.2%. I think we need to address, are these stocks good value for money? What is the positives in this space?
So for the broader space, if you look at the themes playing out, number one is acceleration in power demand. Although near term it's been soft, in the medium to long term, we expect power demand to grow at 1x GDP. The second theme playing out is a tight demand-supply situation in the evening hours when the sun is not out, which aids the thermal story for NTPC and even BHEL for that part. The third theme is the grid, which is, the heart of it all. And grid becomes the challenge as we look to add a lot of renewables that in remote locations in Rajasthan and Gujarat, which aids the story for power grid. And fourth is energy transition, which is well understood, an aspiration to reach 500 gigawatt renewable from 200 today by 2030. In terms of space we like, we continue to like the public sector names, actually, NTPC, Power Grid, and even the lenders to play this capex story in India. They've been a bit soft over the last few months, largely as demand has been a bit tepid. Power demand has been a bit tepid. But our medium to long-term outlook remains the same.
Okay.
And our preferences in terms of stocks also we retain.
Okay. REC and PFC. Okay. In case the discoms are not able to muster up enough money to pay back, there may be a problem for these two. But as you say, at the moment, things are going good. Sabyasachi, to you as well, and then I'll come on more policy questions. Which looks like the healthier part of the system?
So right now, if we look at, traditionally the three legs, the way as a rating agency we have looked at is typically we consider the transmission to be the safest leg in the sense that typically the risk factors are relatively moderate compared to the others, followed by generation and followed by the distribution. So more or less over several years, I have not really seen the inter-se, risk, but what has happened very lately, of course, is that the thermal, there was a point in time where we would have considered thermal, most rating agencies would have considered thermal to be much more risky than renewable. But right now we are seeing because of the, supply-demand mismatch that, Nikhil has alluded to, the things have really looked up for the thermal sector, and we expect that to continue at least for the next 2-3 years, if not beyond that.
Okay.
See, what is happening right now is that, if you have to divide the whole day into solar hours and non-solar hours, so during solar hours, given the capacities that we have right now, obviously even in the peak hours, let's say we are looking at FY26 about 270, around 27 we're looking at about 285 to 290 gigawatts.
No, we are running out of time, Sabyasachi. So which is the healthy part? You say thermal still is positive. What else would be positive?
So renewables, of course. Renewables, of course, will remain, increasing part of the pie. So obviously they will be, but obviously ultimately all of these depend upon the distribution sector. Ultimately the final cash flow comes from the customer to the transcos and discoms, transcos and gencos from discoms.
Okay.
So ultimately, that still sector has to be.
That still is the Achilles heel, as Nikhil said. Well, I have lots more to ask in terms of what can a government announce on nuclear, what can it announce on batteries, storage, the area that is, the cutting edge. All those questions to my guests after the break. Bazaar viewers, you will get to see the entire show after market hours.